Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I am your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here on North Carolina. If you've missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to watch the first episode and watch the rest like a documentary. We are people at peace, and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or a promotional channel, and we are shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you. We are sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We have moderators who are assisting in the comment section. Be kind and self-govern. If you have questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. I am normally joined on air with Greg Clarkson, and he has taken his beautiful bride on a winter vacation. And so now I am proud to introduce you to Justice Anna Maria, who is joining us live from Alaska today. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Niti. I'm sorry I'm late today, but
you're working.
Well, yes, and was up really late. My son took pity on me. He didn't realize it was Tuesday. We've lost track of days here.
Hey, there is a lot going on, Anna, and you know what? I just wanted to tell you that today, for a while now, I'm no longer scared. I'm no longer worried. I know. It's like I'm not worried. I'm not wondering what in the world is going on, but knowing like what is happening because you opened my eyes to the truth that was being occulted from us as far as at least the government was concerned. And in the last more than 65 weeks, you have opened my eyes to the truth about many other aspects of our lives. And this morning I was inspired, Anna, to watch our very first conversation that we recorded in August of 2023. And you observed to me on that day that I had a visceral native grasp and internally feeling and knowing about what is true, while you offered knowledge based on law, fact, and history to prove that what I'm feeling is in fact true. And then you stated that together, we bring a symphony of truth and knowledge to the people who are seeking it. And I wanted to remind folks that this podcast is focused on business and how to conduct international business, leveraging our superior concurrent general jurisdiction globally that begins with our individual declarations. And for us to keep our questions aligned with those topics. But yesterday was really pivotal. And you said many important things last night, but here's a few of the heavy hitting points I was excited about. One, you said, we are now in control of the municipal assets. Like, does that mean purse strings to our trust? Does it include all the copyrights and trademarks and ownership of our corporations? Or does the Vatican still control that? And then number two, you said, we are now in control of our flag. And did you notice there were no flags at the inauguration? And did you notice that there were red and white vertical stripes behind Trump? I don't know how many people realize that. And then number three, you said, we got all our seals and we got all our flags back. So does that mean they can't impersonate us anymore? I know there's so many more things that you said, but those were three pretty big things, right?
Well, it's getting harder and harder for them to impersonate us because more and more people are becoming aware of the issues. And so far as the flag is concerned, the Title IV flag was on loan to them to use when they were exercising delegated powers. It was never just given to them to use when they were doing whatever they wanted to do. It's like giving a subcontractor a piece of equipment that they're supposed to use while doing work for you, and entrusting them to use that properly. And then you find out that they've been using it to do all kinds of other work for other people. And, you come back to them and you say, hey, you're supposed to be using this only for us. And when you're doing this, and, here you are going out all over around the world, using it to do other work in other places, which is incorrect, right?
Or
It's
causing harm, murdering
causing
people.
harm. Yes. So we brought that to an end now. Um, yeah. And it's a very interesting story how that finally came about. Um, Back in 1876, we had the Battle of Little Bighorn. And of course, the Lakota Sioux had been at war with the territorial United States for uh, a number of years, 14 years at that point. And we don't think about this. We don't realize how long the American native nations fought the British territorial government. But it was actually in the 14th year of the Lakota Sioux War that they had the Battle of Little Bighorn and thoroughly routed General George Armstrong Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn. And they took the flag, the Title IV flag that the 7th Cavalry was carrying in that battle. Now, of course, they didn't win the war, but they certainly won that battle, and they took that flag and they kept it, father to son, generation to generation. And they knew, they didn't know all the details, but they knew that the government that caused the Trail of Tears and the wars and all this stuff was not the same government as the government that they knew.
Wow.
Okay? So they had this in the back of their head somewhere, this visceral knowledge, this truth, right?
Mhm.
And they never gave that flag back, and they never gave up. They never officially surrendered to the Bluecoats. So they had that flag, and they waited to give it back. And so now they've agreed to give it back to us.
Huh.
Which, it's our flag. It was borrowed, it was stolen from us by our subcontractors, right? It was stolen property that the Lakota recouped and recovered, and then they didn't know who to give it back to.
Hmm.
So, our flag has been recovered by friendly forces, as you might say. And anyway, this has been a big deal, a big discussion in international circles. Now, it doesn't mean that the Lakota beat us. It doesn't mean that our government was defeated. It means that our subcontractor was defeated in that particular battle. But it also means that in international terms, there's a provenance backing up exactly what we've been saying all along about the Title IV flag, and there's corroboration of it.
Wow.
And so now they're in a situation where they can't just go around using the Title IV flag to do everything and anything they want. They have to use it according to their contract.
It's fascinating. Today, after all of the theater yesterday, then there's a lot of folks who are speaking with me, and they're just like, "Oh, you don't have to put your hand on the Bible to actually swear an oath. Oh, you don't, they're all making excuses for all the various weird items from the inauguration yesterday because I'm like pointing all these things out. And I said, well, the thing that makes me happy is that the men are finally standing again and they're not bleeding, laying on the ground bleeding. So now they have to face us. And that's a completely different scenario altogether because they want everyone to believe that we're all equal, and we're not equal. The only time we're equal is when we're dead. You know, there's nothing the same about any of us. We're all, unique, patches of the tapestry of the living people. And we can finally embrace all of that. And it's really interesting because Anna, that opened a huge door for me to speak with a lot of people who've been following my other work with the farmers. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, where are you going with this? And so it led me back to our very first conversation. And it's fascinating because it's the same conversation we have every freaking week. Every week, it's the same conversation. And of course, now looking back, that was more than 66 weeks ago. And I'm looking at what I know now versus what I knew that day. And um, it's it's so incredible because of what happened yesterday. When folks are saying that, what we're saying, we're making it up, no one can really know, it is making a difference. And it was evidenced blatantly in everyone's face yesterday, if never before.
They realized that they were seeing something that wasn't kosher.
It was weird to them finally. It was like, whoa, wait a minute. And Anna, outside of being financially sovereign, fiscally sovereign, that was the most powerful move, was to see that
That change.
craziness. Yes, it was huge. And I'm so excited about that. And I mean, okay, look, obviously that's going to bring us to what everybody's wanting to know. Like, this is what everyone wants to know. Like last night, Anna mentioned 24 states prosperity unions were online and that others need to do something to get their act together. Does online mean there are, people on certain states with access and to the prepaid credit, and what action needs to happen? Of course, like I was asking you before. So, do you mean if we have control of the municipal assets, does that include the purse strings that Biden was controlling? Is that what that means?
It means that we're at the point of being able to unravel exactly what the municipal government was doing versus what the territorial government was doing. Because
What does that mean?
well, you're looking at this, you got two subcontractors,
Right.
okay?
Okay.
You don't always know in what capacity these people are acting.
Mm.
Is Janet Yellen does Janet Yellen, or she's now gone, but
That position.
that position, does the Secretary of the Treasury, a cabinet officer, have anything to do with the government that is operating as the treasurer?
Right. One thing I've learned about you, Anna, is since that very first conversation, I've been reflecting on so much stuff this morning. I just want you to know, like, I got this, download of something. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh. I know from the notices that we've been putting out is that when you can't give anybody a cookie cutter thing to follow, because the law is living. Now I also comprehend why you call it the living law firm, because, and this is what else I got out of it, Anna, is we're on the land and soil, right? And we look into the water and we see our reflection, and that mirroring is what they're doing. And because we're constantly changing, they're constantly changing. And so there's no pattern. And then the other thing that you said in that very first conversation, I didn't catch it till today. Okay. But in that very first conversation, you said that they changed the definition for person to make it mean incorporated. And of course, now I fully comprehend. That day I didn't comprehend that. But today I was like, wait a minute. They literally just keep changing words that are unincorporated, perhaps, and make them incorporated or whatever in the heck. And also the same as the water reflecting. You're constantly on your tippy toes looking to see what in the world they're going to, like, what could they be doing? What's your reflection look like today? Because then they're going to make a move. And so the law is literally living and shifting and changing, and not just because they keep making up 80 million rules or whatever they're doing, but because that's what I was thinking. But I get it now. You're saying they change the way that they're operating the law, it's like the greater law, which means what? UCC, I mean, all of this, they just are every on the minute, they're changing it. So you can't give anybody like some cookie cutter recipe of, hey, if you do this, this will change that, because you don't know.
Right. Well, and you don't know what what jurisdiction they're operating in. Are they operating in admiralty? Are they operating in maritime? Are they addressing you as a municipal corporation and a citizen of the United States, or are they addressing you as a capital U dot capital S dot capital C citizen of the British territorial empire? Um, so they've been able to confuse us, and they've been
Mm,
able to play this double-fisted game, sort of like a game of keep away. You got these two guys, right? Then you
mm-hmm.
got the dog in the middle, and they keep throwing the frisbee back and forth, right? And
Right.
this is the kind of game we've been stuck in with these yahoos all these years, where at any given moment, their object is to keep us from gaining control of the frisbee and the money.
Got
Uh,
it. So then this is the next good question then. Since the municipal government is defunct, are the all caps estates trusts created and our given names are also defunct? And if so, wouldn't it be illegal for anyone, especially courts, to use them? But so again, this is, what would you say, that they just changed the rules on the moment?
well, no, those municipal estates, the
Uh-huh.
assets in them are not defunct. But what
Mm,
what happens is that you have a competition with the territorial government.
mm,
Remember, this was a process. You started out with an American estate. They concocted this process, this registration process, by
mhm.
which they claimed that you, as a baby, waived your American estate and adopted British territorial citizenship. Then they pretended that you were a taxpayer in their British Merchant Marine Service and that you were lost at sea. And so your name again was trafficked.
Mm.
And a British seaman's intestate decedent estate was created as a public trust of the crown, right, under Admiralty law.
Mhm.
And then the Pope spoke up and said, hey, where's my share? you know? And so
Yeah.
you were trafficked again. Your name was trafficked a second time into municipal jurisdiction, and this municipal estate was created. Well, now they have to liquidate the municipal estate, and the British territorial government, of course, is right there saying, "Hey, that's ours. That was derived from this poor British seaman's estate." And so, Mr. Trump is out there thinking that he has control of Canada, written in all capital letters.
Or the Gulf of America, Anna.
Oh yeah, I know.
What is he talking about?
Yeah. Well, he thinks he has that power because the municipal corporation went bankrupt, and he's trying to claim the assets. But the assets don't belong to the British territorials. They
Mm,
didn't pay any of those debts. They didn't pay any of the expenses of that operation. It's
mhm.
not theirs. It's not their debt. We claimed their debt. And so, we get the assets. So all this has been argued out. It's all been argued out. And um, the way that we've done this
Mhm.
is that the um, we've made an administrative change. We are in the process now of getting everything straightened out so that the assets are claimed and coming back to us. And Mr. Trump has been given notice that no, he's not representing us in this matter, and he can't just go collect debts for us.
Right. Though, he isn't seeing something that if he wanted to really keep his word that he's putting out there, the message that he's putting out there, it would behoove him
To work with us.
to work with you, and it would behoove him to do what his actual job is, which is to work for us under the Constitution. Because if he would just tell everybody the truth, like he should, and let the Americans be recognized and not be the silent majority anymore, then he would actually be able to stand on his platform and make America great again the way he wants to. And it would be actually really beautiful for everybody.
Yeah,
And
it
he's
would.
got himself positioned perfectly to do that.
But does he have sense enough to do it? Or
Dang.
is he too influenced by his own indoctrination and by other people around him clacking in his ears? And fundamentally also, is he humble enough in his soul
Mm.
to accept being a servant of the people instead of a king over the people? You know?
Isn't that what he thinks he is? I mean, isn't that what the president is supposed to be? A servant? Like, do these people, this is what I'm always confused about, is like, you're in public office, you are in the government, and you think you're not here to serve the people. You went around and you made all these promises and you talked all this talk and you don't comprehend that. And so, why should he really feel like he needs to humble himself? Because that is the position that he wanted. And he doesn't even know what that's supposed to look like. It's absurd, right?
Well, he he's certainly not alone. I mean, there have been millions of Americans who have accepted that idea of the king. There are millions of Americans who have gone along with this for 6 generations.
Mhm.
So he's not alone in thinking that the presidential office has all these powers and prerogatives and I'm sorry.
No, take a
Uh,
break.
it-
You have
yeah,
something to drink, have a sip. No,
it,
it's
it's 6 generations, Niti.
I know. Look, nobody's trying to say that he doesn't have any power to do anything. I mean, we're saying he has the power to make it right.
Right.
He
He does.
should want to be going down into history as having actually really done that. I
Right.
mean, what more noble thing could he do? Like, I mean, hello, President Trump. It's like it would be a good idea, you know? And so folks are wondering if the corporation's dissolved, then how is Trump being paid, Anna?
Well, Trump and the rest of the party hardies are being paid through Serco, which is a was a municipal corporation. So there was some disruption in that, and that the municipal corporation got liquidated. But then they had another company called Serco that was a British Crown company,
Hmm.
and so they just did this flip flop.
I mean,
Um,
isn't that the cartel?
basically, now remember, ever since King Henry VIII, well, actually, King John, there's been a relationship between the British government, especially the monarchy,
Hmm.
and the Pope.
Mm.
And the British monarch has been working for the Pope ever since the days of King John in the early 1200s as the overseer of what? The Commonwealth land owned by the church in England. All
Hmm.
right. So
Hmm.
there's been this quid pro quo, this relationship between the monarchs and the popes ever since. And then enter King Henry VIII, and
Hmm.
they really got into business together more as partners, more as a collusive partnership than a simple master servant relationship. And so, even though he was there as the overseer of the Pope's Commonwealth lands in England, he cut a new deal. And the new deal was concerning the churches. You had the Roman Catholics in England, and because of his big, showy, fight with the Pope, Henry VIII had also started the Protestant Church of England, and he had declared himself head of this new Protestant church. But when he went to Rome a couple of years later and sat down with the Pope, they basically developed this new quid pro quo where everybody who was baptized as a Roman Catholic, their estate belonged to the Pope, and everybody that was Church of England, um, Henry would keep a 40% interest in their estate, and the Pope would get 60%. So this was a money deal based on birth certificates. Not birth certificates, baptismal certificates. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
And so,
Certificate. What you taught us about certificates, like the
yeah,
coat check, right?
yeah, right. So these baptismal certificates were then collected and kept track of,
Mm-hmm.
and the material interest in the individual's estate was either 100% the Pope's or 60% the Pope's. And this 60-40 split continues on to today. We see the same split of the money path on the birth certificates, where the Pope gets 60% and the monarch gets 40%.
Right.
So they became business partners basically that long ago. And they continued to be business partners today in America. They continue to play this double handed game. So when the Pope liquidates the municipal corporations, and the British are standing there with a territorial seaman's estate in place,
Mm-hmm.
the intent is that the money from the municipal corps is going to go to the Brits. It's a briar patch scenario where they're pretending that this is, the liquidation has been done and justice has been done, but actually they've been handing off the spoils to their partner in crime, who is their overseer anyway and their muscle.
Right.
Okay, so they're giving it to the Brits, or trying to give it to the Brits, and we finally pop up and go, no, you don't. And so the Brits are supposed to be receiving all these municipal estate proceeds, but they're just the handmaidens of the Pope in this whole situation anyway. So the Pope isn't out anything. I mean, it's
Right.
like the Briar Patch story of Uncle Remus, where you know Brer Rabbit is saying, "Oh, don't throw me in that briar patch." I think it's actually called the Tar Baby. The story is actually called the Tar Baby,
Huh.
and you know, Brer Rabbit comes along and he gets stuck in the tar, and then while he's stuck and he can't do anything, Brer and Brer Fox came by and they finally catch this rabbit, right?
Right.
And he's saying, "Oh, you can do anything to me. You can kill me. You can you can roast me. You can bake me. Whatever. Um, but don't. Whatever you do, don't throw me in that briar patch." Well, so they think that he really doesn't want to go in that briar patch. So that's exactly what we want to do. Whatever he doesn't want, that's what we want. This is what really terrifies him. This is what's really terrible. We're going to throw him in that briar patch. So they throw the rabbit in the briar patch. And of course, briar patch is where the rabbit was born.
So he
So the
just
rabbit,
scuttles right on away. Yeah, that Tar
you
Heel
know,
story. We're the Tar Heels on North Carolina. So like, parts of that story that you just told sound very familiar to me.
well, but it's the same kind of deception where,
Right.
on this side, we're liquidating all these improperly constructed municipal trust estates, but over here, you're collecting it back again, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's your servant, the British monarch, that's doing the collecting.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's going to be sharing the spoils with his master, the Pope.
Yeah.
So,
All right. There's
oh,
a bunch of little bits and bots, Anna, that you're saying, and people want a little clarity. So let's just try to do that. So Laura is saying that Trump is working on birthrights to get rid of the immigrants. I don't even know what that means. How will this affect us and our baby deeds? So, first of all, everybody's an immigrant, including him. Let's just start with that.
Right. What they're talking about there is the anchor baby process,
Mm,
where a pregnant Mexican woman staggers over the border, uh,
mm,
gives birth to twins, and then those twins are counted as Americans because they were born on American soil. And,
correct.
suddenly she's collecting aid to dependent, to, aid
Yeah.
for mothers, and the kids are getting a free public school education in America and all this other stuff, right?
The
And so
brainwashing. Yeah.
there's been quite a traffic for many years of pregnant Mexicans coming to America to give birth for that reason.
Hmm.
And so that's what they're talking about with birthrights.
Mm,
Okay. But I don't think Mr. Trump has any ability to get rid of birthrights on our states, number one,
no.
because he's just a territorial officer and has territorial authority, but that doesn't have anything to say about us. That doesn't have anything to say about our states, right?
Hmm.
There's nothing in any constitution that gives him any right to meddle with our laws about what we accept or don't accept. So there's a lot of these things where they change their laws, but that doesn't affect our underlying public law.
Right. I mean, that would affect a lot of people. Like, I'm a first generation born American too. So, I mean, the bigger deal is that we're sharing this knowledge so that people can actually start to realize that we're trying to do a rescue mission around the globe anyway, right, Anna? I mean,
Right,
we're trying to save all the living men and women, because if we allow enslavement anywhere, allow it everywhere. So,
right,
we rebuke evil, right? That's what people need to get straight, is
right.
that
Well, and think about this. The laws that pertain to living people are not the same laws that pertain to army officers, right?
Mhm.
Everybody knows that, right? There's a code of military justice that takes over, and if you mess up and you're in the army, you're not being charged and prosecuted under civilian law. You're being charged and prosecuted under martial law.
Mhm.
In the same way, the law that's owed the living people is not the same as the law that applies to corporate business. So there are different kinds of law here. A change in martial law doesn't affect civilians. Okay?
Right.
And yet they try to apply it. They try to misapply their law to us. And they've been basing this on a false idea that the American Civil War was a war between the states. But what kind of states are they talking about? They're talking about confederate states of states, not states. Okay, so it was all bogus. It was a false claim. It was a mercenary conflict. It wasn't a war. So
Mhm.
all of the presumptions that follow, oh, it was a war, and we took territory in a war, and we were fighting the states. All of that's overturned because they weren't actually fighting the states. Our states weren't even involved. And so these state of state organizations conducted the war. And it wasn't a war because it was a state of state business organization, not an actual state government that they were engaged with
Mm.
on either side.
Right.
Okay, so there wasn't a war, there was mercenary conflict. And if the founding premise is wrong, then all the rest that follows from it is wrong, right?
Right.
So all those premises that they've used to occupy our country have been undermined by the discovery that it wasn't a war. No law of war applies. So suddenly they're scrambling and they're going, oh, it wasn't a war. It was a mercenary conflict. Well, if it was a mercenary conflict, it was illegal by definition. And gee, guys, we're looking bad here. How are we going to keep on justifying our control of this country or any other of the countries that we've taken over and treated like the British Raj. Well, they can't. They can't. The Raj is over in India, the Raj is over in the rest of the world because they were basically committing fraud against all these countries all along. And they were calling these wars when they weren't wars. They were mercenary conflicts. They were being fought by mercenaries, even though the people that were fighting them didn't realize they were operating as mercenaries. You see? Just a gigantic fraud scheme, a con game, a scam, a sting.
Like the liars always do. So Jack says, can they gin up a new flag to fly with no standing?
Well,
And also,
yeah, they're going to try. I mean, but
then Don's like, what does it mean when the flags are posted at the schools and everywhere else? I mean, you know what I want to see, Anna, is to go to airport and just not see that flag there anymore, especially with the pirate fringe all around it.
Yeah. Well, they can't do that anymore. But the only time they can use our flag is when they're actively engaged in exercising a delegated power. And if we didn't delegate a power to them that's in back of that use of our flag, they have no right or reason to use it. So you'll see it, you'll continue to see it flying in various places, but not nearly as much as you now do.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't be flying over state land, for example,
or even maybe the post office anymore, right?
Well, it probably will be over the post offices because remember there are multiple postal services, and some of those are
enumerated services.
Right. So because these two subcontractors are actually in business together, and because they operate in tandem, if the one post office goes down, the other post office takes up the slack. That's part of what I was talking about, how there was two complete levels of government that we were paying for.
Right. Well, you've done it in the boxes, but also even when they threw us in the water, then they made us citizens of both of them because they knew that they needed to be able to control us on either side at any given time. So people are asking me questions like, what does this have to do with business? I mean, everything. Your standing as a living man has everything to do with your ability to operate in business on the land and soil, period. So that's why all of this matters. It's interesting how a lot of this folks can't comprehend, Anna. They can't put it all together, because it's a hoop, it's a circle. We're giving them information and all of it is connected because it is our provenance. It's our provenance. And, this is a good one. Andrea says, hey, Anna, what an exciting time to be alive. Thank you for all your efforts. Can we have a timeline when we'll be able to use our funds by summer soon? Any hope to hang on to would be great. I guess you're a fortune teller now, Anna, maybe.
I have a crystal ball. Look, I'm sorry. At this point, people aren't even understanding the difference between money and credit. All your life, you've been using credit to transact business. And specifically, what you've been doing, you've been offering an IOU called a promissory note in payment of all your bills and all of your purchases. A Federal Reserve note is a promissory note. It's an IOU. So here you are. Read my article called Joe's Hamburger Shop. There's a series of articles that are, some title Joe's Hamburger Shop. Read all of them so that you get a good sense of what you're actually doing when you walk into somebody's store and buy something. You're not actually buying it, you're being given it on the assumption that at some point in the future, you're going to pay your bill.
I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Exactly. Exactly.
They
And
noticed us with that, friends, in Popeye. So watch the Popeye cartoon and see the notice being played every week.
yeah, exactly. And that's what we've been doing. We've been going in with these IOUs, and the people printing these IOUs have been promising that they will pay. But of course, they never pay. They keep kicking the can down the road, and the debt keeps getting higher and higher until the corporation says, oh, wow, we've got way too much debt. We can't pay that. So then they go bankrupt. And when they go bankrupt, they name us, the victims of this scam, as the underwriters and secondaries for their bankruptcy. So all their bills get tossed back on us. But because we don't have anything to pay a debt with, thanks to them, all our gold and silver has been cashiered by them, right?
Right.
We don't have anything to pay with except more debt notes, which creates more debt.
Anna,
round and around it goes.
You were talking in the most recent article, or one of the recent ones, about your generation, and how they're so like lost in this. They're the same people that I know that believe that the government gets to decide if gold is valuable or not, or being used as currency or not, when it's actually the only cash, but they're not, they don't know about a lot of this fraud, and
right.
so
the rest of the world has always used gold and silver.
Yeah.
Always. All international transactions have been made in gold. Domestic transactions have been made in silver. And if you look at the history of our country, that's exactly how we operated too. When we paid our debts to France or Greece or whatever, when we had a debt, we paid in gold, right?
Right.
But at home, what did we use? We used silver and silver certificates.
Right.
This was the quid pro quo throughout the entire world, that you used gold for paying international debts and you used silver for domestic debts. Although you could also use gold for domestic debts. But, generally speaking, you use gold. That was the gold standard for paying international, and silver for paying debts at home. You actually haven't paid the debt in your entire life. You've been using paper, promissory notes, as if it was money. And
right.
That's what I'm saying about the two systems. You have physical asset, money, gold and silver coinage, for example, and you've got credit.
Yeah.
That's commercial script. That's promissory notes. That's stocks. That's bonds. That's all that other stuff
Mortgages
in this basket.
Yeah. Anna, in the 20s and the 30s, when they stole all the gold and all of that, I mean, I think a lot of the things that your generation was confusing and also remembering, but glitching maybe with some of it, is that it is one of the enumerated powers that were given to the federal government, the contracted government, was to create the money, right? Or the currency.
The states make all of their money in silver and gold coinage.
Mm.
The federal government is supposed to use our credit as their currency.
Wow. This is such a big point. I hope people heard that just now.
Let's take a moment and pause. The states of the Union are prohibited from paying anything except in gold and silver. the federal government is supposed to subsist on our credit. And that's why credit has become such a big deal. It's them wanting their money or their credit. They want to spend our credit. So the way this is all set up, the states are supposed to pay them in gold or silver, and they are supposed to take our credit card and go do work. So people are asking me about the banks. Well, banks come in two kinds. International trade banks deal with gold and silver, and commercial banks deal with commercial script, credit cards, all of that, fiat money, all of that. So you got two different kinds of banks, and you got two different kinds of things that can be used to transact business. And you need both in the modern world. You need a gold asset-backed money that you can use, or a silver-backed asset money you can use to transact international business with other countries. And you need a credit instrument of some kind so that you can transact business at home with all these commercial corporations, because they're all operating on credit. So you need both your AFD and your US dollar that's silver, your silver US dollars, right? And you need a bank that can transact and deal with them. And then you also need your prepaid credit. So then you have this other institution, our prosperity centers, right, that are coming online that can transact things with prepaid credit.
I mean, this is an important point because you're trying to make sure we have access to both. And the way I comprehend it, Anna, you don't really want us to spend our AFD. That is our wealth that you want us to hold for the family. And the credits are what we should be using, like day to day, because that is what it was. That was our inheritance, right?
Right.
And you're trying to help ensure that everyone has their wealth. Like, this is the important question right here, Anna. What steps can Mr. Trump take to begin to make it right and begin to operate the United States of America legitimately? I want you to answer it because everybody has all these bits and bots to share, but I want you to tell everybody what that is.
Well, he can begin educating himself and everybody else about the actual history and structure of our government. I mean, the very first thing that is going to leap out of the box at anyone who starts this is that, there's supposed to be a state assembly. So what's a state assembly? What does a state assembly do? Well, the state assembly is supposed to be sitting up here at the very tippy top of the structure, telling the state legislature and all the people working for the state legislature what the state assembly wants done. And then the legislature is supposed to make the laws and the rules and the regulations for the government employees to go out and get the work done. The state assembly is the employer of the whole mess. And they are the ones that are supposed to be telling the state legislature what programs, what laws, what priorities the people of the state want. That's what's supposed to be happening. Instead, after the Civil War, the British territorials came in, the Raj came in, substituted their state of state government for our state of state government. Our state of California was replaced by their British territorial state of California.
And I just want to, can I interject right there, Anna? I hate to interrupt this, but this is important because there is a disconnection sometimes between what you're saying and what people hear. And so Abraham Lincoln did that, right?
Well, it was his, Grant and all the people that came after.
Right. It was his
part of his scheme.
Right. So the reason I'm saying that is for like this guy Lee. Like, why can they access our credit and we can't because he usurped us. That's why we got usurped. How did
Yes.
people used to usurp people back then? Chop their head off, like literally with a sword. And then, and then what? We had the Pony Express. Who was going to tell anybody
Right.
anything? They could just make up stories, friends. Like, let's just remember what was happening. How did this happen?
How did
And
this
why does
start?
it matter? But like they're not thinking about it like that. Everybody's used to watching the movies, right? So just trying to remind everyone, everybody after Lincoln usurped us, lied to
Right.
everybody. Because look, Anna, I try to tell everybody, when mom and dad have a fight, the children rarely know what the fight was about.
Right.
We can make it up, but we don't really know. So, it's
Right.
important for everyone to comprehend that. That's why I love when you introduced everyone to my lunchbox, the my lunchbox series. And it is my encouragement, friends out there, for you to go to YouTube and then search my lunch break. And he's talking in the beginning. Go to the oldest video and start there. It's like, I think it's episode number 12 where he actually starts like the good stuff. And he is just talking about historical buildings. But what he's going to point out is something that will begin to open your mind. It begins to crack the programming and the mind control that they've put over us. And it really allows you to comprehend more easily what Anna is saying from there, because he does a really good job
Well,
with doing that.
he starts out as this guy who's just kind of bobbling down the street and he's looking at these buildings and he's wondering, wow, how did that, how and when did that get built and who built it? He's kind of like a, junior woodchuck architect. He's looking at this stuff and, wants to know more about, these gorgeous all stone buildings with all these embellishments and columns and stuff. And, why don't we build anything like that anymore? And, why don't we see these kinds of building techniques anymore? And so he starts out just basically somebody who is noticing something in the environment and he's curious about it. So he starts digging a little bit. And then as he's digging, he's finding all this weird stuff. Like they built that building, this huge, beautiful, embellished building that's still standing there today. They built that building supposedly in 2 years back in 1896 using mostly horses and buggy transportation. Right. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and my uncle is the president of the United Nations. There's a disconnect about 40 miles wide between what we know about life and society in 1896 and all the photographs of the horses and buggies and these gigantic buildings. And then when you add in factors like they're claiming it was built in 2 years,
and then burnt, like they burned the stone. And like we have the capability of, I'll tell you, Anna, I can't wait till you make them finally. Like, I want, not you but us, that we make them give us our actual history, because I'm telling you what, I've been to the Taj Mahal. I've been to the Lotus Temple in India. The Lotus Temple in India is both concave and convex. And it's at the same time like one wall. I don't know if anyone out there really comprehends what that means, but like just, concave and convex at the same time. What architect is doing something like that today? And then the Taj Mahal has the entire Quran around all four doorways. What incredible power source is that, actually? Because
right,
it is not freaking a tomb. Okay, this is like, the more I think about it, I mean, I've walked that whole area, and what nonsense. I mean, I want to go there with the my lunch break guy and just do that episode with him,
right.
because I mean, I really truly, the Red Fort and the Dodge, I want to go there with the lunch break guy just to do that episode, because that would be the most fun thing for me to do. But and take him to the Lotus Temple in India, in Delhi as well, and like to just, because these are magnificent, incredible, structures in what is the third world country, India. Like, come on, people, like, let's just, what in the world? It's like,
Yes.
what
Yes.
is what is going
Right.
on?
Well, and there are all sorts of things. You go to New York, you go to Paris or London, you go to one of these big cities, and you see all of these statues that are made out of hollow cast iron,
Right.
gilded or not. They don't know how that was done anymore. They can't replace those statues. If they're damaged, they're damaged. They can't be replaced because they no longer know how to cast hollow cast iron.
Right. I mean, that, like he says, the technology. I want to know who has the freaking technology. Where did this come from? And how do we do it again? And can we ever get back to it? Right.
Right.
So everybody's going on and on and on in the comments, Anna. I know you got to get ready for your next show. Okay. So I'm going to keep you on track. But I will just say that this is a good one to maybe try to answer. But folks, we have answered all these questions. We answer them every week. Anna answers them every single week. You're not paying attention. You're not watching. You're not listening. You don't want to hear the truth, whatever. I don't really know. But what does online mean concerning the prosperity centers, Anna?
Okay, right now we have online banking services, and you have the AFD, and now you're getting the credit services, okay, in the prosperity centers. Just like I told you, you have two different kinds of quote unquote money, and you need both these kinds of banks. So you're going to need to have a AFD account and a prepaid credit account. We're talking about the establishment of the second kind of bank and the second kind of credit-based account. So you'll have a prepaid credit account, and you'll have your AFD account. Now, the prosperity centers are ultimately going to have, well, just imagine this. You walk up to a big building. On one side, there's a door, which is prepaid credit. On the other side, you have a door that's gold and silver. And in the back of the building, you've got another, big office complex that's land and purchases. Okay. You'll be able to have a one-stop brick and mortar center where you can go and you can deal with issues related to prepaid credit or gold and silver, or you can go around the back of the building and you can say, oh, I want to buy this house. And then that will be another whole process that's orchestrated for you by the Prosperity Center, so that when you get a house, it'll be thoroughly inspected so you know exactly what you're buying. You'll get assistance with any renovations or repairs or remodels that need to be done. And then you'll get the house free and clear. It'll be your property. No mortgages anymore. Because you never did owe any mortgages. Okay, so it'll be a whole different world, a different process for you. And you'll have these prosperity centers that will eventually be just these big one-stop brick and mortar places. You'll have several of them in your state, and you'll just be able to go there and conduct all your business.
Nice. So people want to know what action you want people to take. You said last night that you wanted people to take action. What did you want us to do?
It's not me that wants them to take action. It's the banks. You've got two bank systems, and your state has to have a credible crew together to be able to set up these banks in your state.
You mean customers?
I mean that the state assemblies need to have a treasurer who's competent.
Oh.
They need to have a banking committee that's more or less competent and on board here, so
Okay,
that
so
the
we're
bank
not
has
talking
somebody to
about,
work with.
yeah, we're not talking about the individual people, headhunter Brian. What we're talking about is the assemblies have to get
Yeah.
themselves organized. So copy that.
Yeah, the only reason that some states have their Prosperity Center accounts online is that they have a state treasurer, they
Hmm.
have a banking committee, and they're organized enough so that they've given somebody for the bank to work with.
So then they have access to their credit, Anna, or they don't? This is the big question, the mystery that everybody wants to have
We're
answered.
we're we're getting everything set up so that it's ready to go as soon as we make these final conversions.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the AFD system set up. Now we're putting the prepaid credit system in place, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll cut loose both at once at the
Got
same
it.
time.
Right. So, friends, what this means is that when you have an infrastructure, but you have no people in the infrastructure to do the actual work, then the infrastructure doesn't matter. It's empty buildings. And so Anna needed the people in the buildings with the knowledge to make it also go because that's all part of it, right, Anna? It isn't like
Well,
just magic.
yeah, you need people at the assembly level who are
Hmm.
able to work with our banks to set up that infrastructure in their state.
Copy.
So, for example, Minnesota has their infrastructure is already there. Boom. They have a treasurer, they have a banking committee, they have some people with banking experience. So the International Trade Bank could go to Minnesota and set up an international trade bank, and everybody knew what they were talking about. There might
Right.
have been some explanations, of course, but
Right.
um, the hand. Um, Thank you, thank you.
Hey, you brought coffee. Don't complain about it.
I'm not.
No.
Um, but anyway, the the assemblies have to provide some of the people and
Hmm.
the on the ground understanding and boots before we can establish a banking system in that state. And so it's
Right.
the state assemblies that need to get their act together and get their state treasurer elected and get their banking committee together so that we can set up both kinds of banks to serve the individual people.
Yeah. 100%. So then this will be the last one. They want to know, can they go to another state if someone else is set up and they're not? And this person right here has no idea what is going on because they're brand spanking new. And also that every state is its own nation. That's makes it a
Yeah.
little more complicated.
Um, when you are living in another state to do some work, say you're on a contract that requires you to live in Washington for a period of time while you're working this particular project, but you
Hmm.
actually live in Idaho, then everything that you do has to be in the state where you actually live in Idaho. So you would have your banking in Idaho while you're living in Washington. That might not be convenient, but with online banking, it's doable today without a big lot of trouble. And of course, all of the banks in the network, the quote unquote blue dot network, um, will be able to communicate with each other, and they'll be able to transfer money back and forth.
Right. And so where's the resource for the information for the assemblies?
There is Global has a desk assigned to assisting the assemblies. I don't have that information right with me right now.
Hmm.
I think that you could probably get direction by contacting any of the global emails, just
Hmm.
to ask to get directed toward them. I can do some more research and have an answer for you next week too, because I don't keep track of all their emails. They've got about 16 different emails for everything, and so
Right.
we do need to um, we've already done this announcement to all of the assemblies. We already asked the assemblies to get in contact with a specific email and all of that.
Right.
And some of them did and some of them didn't. So,
all right, friends. Well, coordinators know how to get that stuff organized. And Anna, thank you so much for all your time, and what an exciting time it is. And I love you and appreciate you so much. And we will look for you next Tuesday.
take care, Niti.
Thank you so
Sorry I
much.
was late.
It's okay. It's all right. Look, you're just changing the world, and
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you
just
very much.
doing routine stuff.
Routine stuff. Thank you so much.
Take care, dear.
I appreciate it.